Hi, I'm Connie from Let's Go Crafting. Today's project will be a hair scrunchie. You can make these, tons of these, for friends, for yourself, for siblings, and they don't take very long. There's no pattern today. All you need is a piece of fabric that is 18 inches long and 4 inches wide, and also a 6-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic. 1/2 inch elastic will also work. Our first step is to fold our fabric in half lengthwise, making sure that our edges are even. And our first pin is going to be 2 inches from the edge. So you just measure in approximately 2 inches and put your first pin. And then you keep going, you keep pinning this, and the rule of thumb is a hand width apart. And we're just going to pin all the way down, a hand width apart. Until we get to the other side. Once you get to the other side, our last pin, excuse me, will be 2 inches from this side as well. Okay, I'll meet you at the sewing machine. So now we are at the sewing machine. We're going to put our fabric on the sewing machine. The edge of our presser foot will be at the edge of our fabric. We're going to sew at 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take my pin out. Every seam when you start or end comes with you need to do a back stitch. And then you're just going to sew a straight seam. This project also can be done by hand. You would just do a small running stitch all along this edge. It won't take too long. Here I am at my last pin, and I'm going to stop and do my back stitch. Okay, now I'm going to take it off my sewing machine, and I'm going to trim my threads. I always do them while I'm at the sewing machine to keep everything nice and tidy. Okay, I will meet you at the other end of the table. So now we need to turn our little tube here right side out. To do that, the easiest way that I have found is to use a safety pin. This is the head of your pin, and this is the back of your pin. So you'll open up your pin, and you'll go to one end of your tube, and you're going to just stick your pin into the fabric and close it up. Then you're going to take the head of your pin and push it into your tube. You hold the end of the pin and you slide your fabric onto the safety pin until you can't go any farther. Then you hold, here's the head of my pin, I can feel it. You hold the head of your pin tightly and let go with the other hand. And then you take all these little folds and you pull them over the back end. And then you just keep doing that. So now I'm going to hold on to the back end of my pin, let go of the front end, and push more fabric on. Then I'm going to hold on to the front, and I'm going to keep going. If you bunch up your fabric too much here, it won't go over and turn right side out. So you will need to unbunch it and start again. But if you do it little by little, it works very nicely. And now I can see my pin coming out, and I just keep pulling and pulling the fabric until it turned itself right side out. Now I'm going to take my pin off. Okay, now it's time to go iron this thing. So now it's time to iron. The reason we iron is right now it looks a little small, and that's because we have all this that's kind of folded in. So you want to make sure that your seam is all the way to the top, so you don't have any fold. And then you're just going to iron it. When you're ironing, be careful that you only touch the handle. This is the foot, the faceplate of your iron, and that's the part that gets super hot. So you're just going to keep ironing until the whole thing is nice and flat and looks very neat. Okay? The next thing you're going to do is we're going to fold this together, and we're now going to sew these ends. Let's go back to our table to pin and sew. So now we're going to pin, and we're just going to make our edges even. And what we're doing now is creating the circle for the scrunchie. And mine doesn't line up all the way. Here we go. Now it will. And again, we're going to go sew at 1/4 of an inch on the sewing machine, or you're just going to get your needle and thread and you're going to sew it by hand. These are super quick, both by hand and by machine. I'm going to take my pin out. I never sew over my pins. Okay, so first I'm going to go forward and then do my little back stitch to make sure my stitches don't come out. And come forward. Out comes the pin. Now it is time to put in our elastic. Now we have our seam sewn. Our two ends are together, and now we just take our tube, and it really is a round tube. We are going to insert our 6-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic into this tube. So this time I'm using a smaller safety pin, and I'm going to put it onto the very end of my one end of the elastic. I'm going to stick it into my tube. I'm going to take this end and attach it to the open part. The reason we do this is the elastic is much smaller than our tube, and if there's nothing securing the elastic, it tends to just follow along, and then your scrunchie is never scrunched. So we move the elastic along mostly the same way that we did when we turned our tube right side out. You hold on to the back end of your pin, you move your fabric onto the pin, you hold on to the front of the pin, and then you pull. And you just do that all the way until it comes out the open end. I love these. I love making these. I love giving these as gifts. They're just so simple if you've got 20 minutes of time. All right, here I am at the end. I'm going to pull it out. And then I'm going to unattach this one and pull this end out. There's many ways to attach your elastic. I have a favorite way. It's quick, easy, and the elastic stays together. So I'm going to put my pin, I'm going to hold both pieces of my elastic together with the pin. You can again do this with hand sewing or on the machine. I'm going to come over to the machine and I just set it down. Now this is one of the only times that I ever sew over my pin. The reason being, if I don't, then the elastic pieces pull apart and I have to start all over. So I'm going to put my needle into my elastic and I'm going to come forward. You kind of have to help it along. And then I'm going to go backward and forward and backward. And now I'm done with that part. I will see you in a minute. Now you've got your elastic connected. This is the last part of your scrunchie. You're going to pull the open ends of your scrunchie together, the hole where you inserted the elastic. You're going to fold over the edges like we did on yesterday's project because we don't want any of our frayed edges showing. I always pin. It makes my fabric behave a little better than if I were not to pin, and then they don't slide. All right, last step. Let's go on to the sewing machine. This time we're not going to sew at 1/4 inch. This time we're going to sew right next to the edge of the fabric. So we're going to be trying to sew about here, and that's so that the fabric that we turned in is going to get caught up in this seam, and that way it'll hold it closed much more nicely. Sometimes when you have to go over the two seams, you know, the one on the front side and the one on the back side, it's a little bit bulky for your machine, and you can just help your machine. Sometimes your machine needs a little help, and if you're sewing by hand, you might need to use a little bit of a thimble or a piece of cardboard or maybe a pot holder to push your needle through a thicker piece of fabric. Sewing. I'm going to trim my threads closely. And there you have it. A nice scrunchie ready to wear.